Welcome into another edition of the Under the Lights video podcast. We are talking high school football around the Southeast. Ben Spicer, Drew Johnson, and Mark Henry joining you here this morning. I'm back after a week off, although I could have taken this week off too. So last week I took off because I didn't cover a game. Florida State played on Friday night, so I had to put some work in for the main job. But this week I could have taken off too, guys, because apparently no AD can reply to emails of the games that I tried to go out and cover. And the funny thing about that is two of the teams I reached out to, two of the schools, were schools that we've covered and talked about on the show earlier in the season. So don't know why. I mean, I'm not upset about not being able to go. I think I'm more upset that you can't spend 30 seconds to reply and say either yes or no. So that's really annoying. One of the schools I actually asked, emailed AD. He included the head coach on the email and said, I'm fine with it if he's fine with it. And then I didn't get a reply. So, like I told you guys in the group chat, I'm not begging. I'm not double texting. It's simple to respond to an email. I know you see it. I know you got it. And the thing about these games is there's dozens of people at most of the games that I've went to this season that just have no business being on the sideline. So we're actually trying to help the kids out, trying to help them gain exposure. I think we do a good job of that. And I also think it's ridiculous that you can't reply to our emails. But having said that, I'll keep that in mind once the playoffs come, and I'm trying to determine my coverage. Since you can't be bothered to respond to an email, I can't be bothered to come out and cover your team. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Mark was at a game. He was at a good game as well down in Houston. North Shore and Atascocita came down to the final seconds. Mark had a video of an insane catch. But I'm gonna give him the floor and let him break it down.
Well, a battle of two teams that are familiar with each other, probably 15 minutes apart in location. But this was a battle for 23-6A. North Shore came in ranked number 2 in the state, and Atascocita was ranked very highly as well. But this was a battle of attrition all the way through, and Atascocita led. They had a 16-13 lead. At the half, it was 23-20. But as you can see with the final score being 27-23, they didn't score anymore in the second half. North Shore kind of put the clamps on, made some adjustments or whatever. We're talking about well over 10,000 fans at this game. Sidelines had every publication that you could think of, especially in the Houston area.
Their ADs replied. That's nice.
Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? And before I quit, I'll talk about that a little bit as well. But it was a game special teams being fourth
Love it.
quarter, less than a minute left. Tuscaloosa gets stopped, and they call a timeout. North Shore does. The kicker had been doing a great job all week. I mean, all night. And the reason they were doing the coffin kicks is because Cornell Farrakhan the previous week took back 4 special teams touchdowns in the previous game. So they had their scouting report done well. But at the heat of the moment, when the lights are on, we get an 8-yard punt out of the kicker. Gives North Shore excellent field position in plus territory on the 40-yard line. So the first play they come out, they run it for 5. And Caleb Bailey comes back and hits Cameron Smith up the sideline on a wheel route. End up spectacular grab. I just happened to be right there, Johnny on the spot. I've gotten phone calls and texts, from people. Hey man, I don't know if that's really, Houston was buzzing with this. I don't know if that's really a catch. Couple referees. Shout out to Sean Solo. We had a couple of talks about it as well. Listen, man, it was a tough call, but the refs, they were very adamant. And, I was talking to Sean Jimerson, our head ref for DR7. The refs came in with a definite call. They came in, there wasn't a huddle, there wasn't any question. In his eyes, he thought that, if they had a question about it, that was a field judge far to the side. Back judge had an eye on it, and it was a guy right in front of me. So, from his eyes, he thought that they made a pretty good, call on it. And then the next 2 plays later, Caleb Bailey hits Cornell Farrakhan Jr. for the score 27-23. The crowd erupts, pandemonium, and North Shore squeaks it out. They've won the last 9 contests over this particular club, and these aren't the same players every time. So I think it's I was having a conversation with someone about this after the game, and they were saying that It's in these guys' head. You know what I mean? It's in the program's head that they just can't get over the hump of these guys. Psychologically, it could be. That's just a thought. But listen, Cordell Mack was as advertised up front, up close and personal. He carried this team. Torrey Blaylock was injured, came in the fourth quarter, and he was spectacular. Did what he could. They rushed for over 250 yards against a very good North Shore defense. But at the end of the day, champions are champions for a reason. And Coach Willie Gaston and those guys on that last 60 seconds worth of football, they had a very, very good offensive game plan, and they got down the field, and that's the reason veterans are veterans. And I talked about this with Caleb Bailey after the game. He's been doing it since he was a freshman. You have to take that into account. He's been in these pressure situations, and he's the guy under the center for those guys that got it done. Over 100 yards passing, over 100 yards rushing as well. The defense had to be commended as well. Cedric Henderson had a couple of big plays down the stretch. Uh, these guys are veterans and being in the moment, and I think that you saw that up close. That these guys. This is my second time seeing them this year, and I think they'll have a chance to get back to state. Now I've seen Duncanville, I've seen North Crowley, and I've seen some of the other teams that'll be in the way. But it takes resolve, it takes know-how, and you and I talked about this weekend. Why isn't Caleb Bailey being more recruited? Well, I think that the proof is in the pudding. This guy is very cool, calm, and collective. When he was made the splash as a freshman, taking them to an undefeated record and winning the state championship, college programs came out of the woodwork, and he had a couple offers very early. It's kind of slowed down, but I think at the end of the day that this guy has the moxie, has the skill set. Being one of the top dual threat quarterbacks that you'll see in the 2025 class, and I think he should be highly rated nationally. He's that guy. He can get it done on the ground, through the air, and he has the mental makeup to face adversity. They were down, hostile environment on the road, the other team's band blaring when they get the ball. It was the perfect storm to not succeed, but he overcame and he got it done. And I was very impressed. I've seen KB play since he was a freshman, and his body is where it needs to be physically, and he just understands how to win. Sometimes winners win. It's just it's they have that click or that mindset when it comes down to winning that they have to turn it on. Didn't panic, as you can see on the drop back on the deep pass. He wasn't panicked. He kept his eyes downfield. The pocket presence was great. He stepped up and made a big throw. That's all you can ask for from a leader and a veteran like that. And this is a veteran team with a very good senior class for North Shore. So, it's one of those things where one of the best games I've seen this year. And for us guys that do this is what we live for. But back to what you said before I toss it to Drew about getting into games. We do this, and we do this religiously year in and year out. If there's a question about something, we put our information in there for a reason. Pick up the phone and call. If you need a reference, we got a plethora of reference phone book worth of references that you need. We're there to give the kids exposure. And sometimes these programs that don't get the exposure that really need it are the ones that kind of handcuff, guys like us, or handcuff legit media as far as coming in and covering. It's not a thing. And we've even filled out background checks where we have to put in our social security number, and that's personal information for something that we don't really get a paycheck for per se, like a regular job. We do this out of love. We do this to expose the unexposed, and it just takes a helping hand. And if we work together, then we'll be able to get those kids that exposure. So, picking up a phone call, returning an email is just a click of a button. And we don't mind, stepping out there and, speaking with you and explaining. Drew, we've done this, you've been doing this for a long time. We have plenty of references and things. And I hate to say it, but you can Google us and you'll see the proof is there on that kind of stuff. But, I understand Ben's plight on that because we deal with this. This is the reason I try to put 2 or 3 games a week that I apply for, and then I pick and choose where I go. But we want to do this for the love. We do this for the kids, and then I think my guy Drew has some guys nationally that he wants to talk about.
Yeah, well, he kind of kicked it over to me. That's usually, that's how I like it. You know what I mean? Mark can do it all, but really quick, talking about that, just to expand on that a little bit, it feels like each year media access is just getting more and more limited. I don't know if that's out there in Texas, but it's for sure happening out here. I'm sure you guys seen that
It's
Pinellas
awful.
County.
It's awful in Florida, Drew.
Yeah,
It's
that
awful.
Pinellas. That's why I said we like 20 years behind when it comes to certain things, because the Pinellas County graphic is going viral out here, man. You got to jump through hoops just to get on the sideline. And once you get to one certain end zone, you can't move, and you got to stay there the whole game. It's just limited and limited and limited, limiting it more every year.
It's not the NFL, guys. I mean,
right. And my thing is, if they need it needs to be a better process, right? If we got to maybe submit some things before the season to be on the list throughout the year, like, hey, I submitted this preseason. I'm there at this game. I get to the gate, check my name. He's here. Cool. Let him in. Like, it needs to be a better process, because it's all about the student athlete for sure. But like my guy Marc said, I got 3 kids for you guys. We've been talking together. We want to give some kids the spotlight as we kind of wrap up the regular season here. I got 2 Florida kids for you guys, and I got 1 kid out of state. But I want to kick things off with the 4-star 2026 Miami quarterback commit, Darion Coleman. I'm sure you guys heard of this kid's name, but he's definitely blowing up down here in Florida, Central Florida area for sure. And those South Florida fans are liking him too. We watched Cam Ward last night. Manoles, man, we got beat up a little bit, but he's got Jones High School off to an 8-0 start, stacking wins against tough teams like Edgewater, Osceola, and Lake Wells. If anybody knows these teams, these are tough defenses and well-coached programs. So if you saw him on Friday, man, he was on fire. He set a school record with 7 passing touchdowns in just the first half, guys. They went on the route Lake Region 77-0. So Jones is looking good right now on both sides of the ball. He doesn't have just Burnell Brown, 5-star wide receiver, Florida commit, but he has Larry Jones as well, 2026 wide receiver. You guys seen him play with 24K. So they stacked on that offensive side. He got some weapons. But just breaking down this game, man, you can just tell he's well polished for his age. You know, he's got one of the smoothest releases, not just in the class, guys, but maybe in the country, with the amount of quarterbacks that we've seen in the offseason on the DR7 circuit. So you can really just tell he's been putting the work in. You know, it's paying off working with Central Florida quarterback trainer Balin Trujillo. He has a stable of quarterbacks, man, just from Noah Grubbs, Brady Hart, and Darion Coleman is one of the top quarterbacks in the country. But his mechanics are sharp, guys. His footwork is clean, and he plays with a calm confidence that just stands out. I mentioned Cam Ward. If you've been watching him throughout the season, I'm not a big Miami fan, but I got to be a fan of the game. This guy's just calm. I don't know if he's ever gets flustered or anything. We had him. I know Ben watched the game last night, knows we had him down about 18 times, man. We just couldn't sack him. You know what I mean? Just that calm footwork and just to be able to maneuver in and out of the pocket. Darion Coleman kind of reminds me of that kid. So just for you Miami fans, if you're getting nervous about Ward leaving, take a deep breath, you know, because Coleman's on the way, right? He's got a natural feel for the game. It's very rare, and he's only getting better for his age. He's in his junior year. So just keep your eyes on him as he has a senior year, another year of mechanics, another year working with Balin. And some people are talking about his weight and his frame and whatnot, but he has another season of weight training to get his body all together. So shouts out to Darion Coleman, man. You put some of his highlights up, you'll see this kid's the real deal. Can throw every route on the route tree. And as I said, he can get mobile when he needs to as well. But let's switch things over. Let's talk about linebacker, man. Next up, let's talk about Michael McClinton over at Ocoee High School. I had this kid on my show before because last year, guys, this kid is the definition of a tackling machine. Last year, he led the nation in tackles with over 200 tackles with more than 30 sacks. And he's on track to do it again. Right now, he leads the nation with 182 tackles with 40 tackles for loss. Wow. Now, before anybody say those numbers, you know, are inflated, or I know they sound crazy, you know what I mean, with these Madden franchise type numbers, but just watch the film, right? This isn't Pop Warner padded stats. This kid is high energy, good motor, flying across the field, making plays, and his IQ, right? He's not just a batter tackling machine. He has a high IQ. I just watched some of this film last night. Just watching him being able to time the snap. When you watch a kid come from the middle linebacker position, take a step at the line of scrimmage and jump the snap before damn near the center can even hike the ball, and he's in the backfield with like I said, over 40 tackles for loss. This is the real deal, right? So he's a monster at the backer position, man. Just talking with some people around here. Colleges like USF, FIU, FAU, they should be all over hidden gems like this. I talked to Marc, I talked to Ben. Florida can be a little bit oversaturated when it comes to athletes, right? That's why a lot of these schools come out of state to come in state to grab some of the speed, to grab some of these talented playmakers. But when you got a tackling machine, a guy with a nose for the ball like this in your own backyard, these schools that are on the rise should be offering kids like this. I get confused, similar to Texas, man. A lot of these Sam Houstons we talked about, North Texas, they be missing out on gems, kids like this, right? I don't know why they don't go after them. So shouts out to Michael McClinton, led the nation in tackles last year, #1 in the country right now. Really quick, guys, I'm going to wrap it up with a kid that's out of state. Going back on the offensive side, I just put out a national stat leaders post that we're going to be putting out here as the season wraps up. We're all going to be partaking in that. But I put out a 2026 offensive stat leaders post, and this kid was in it. His name Cameron Fanzini. I'm sure our guy CJ Gilbert over at Unlock Your Game will know this kid. I think he's leading. I think he's top 3 right now in rushing numbers for the 2026 class. But he's a powerhouse in the backfield for this Russellville High School program. And he's one of the top rushers in the state of Alabama, not just in the 2026 class. We talked about another kid that's leading the state of Alabama, but this kid kind of reminds me of him. Right now, he has over 2,000 rushing yards with 24 rushing touchdowns on 177 carries this season. But he recently got on my radar after I put that post up. And just looking at his film, guys, he's got a rare blend, of size, speed, and vision. He's close to 6 foot, 200 pounds. And he's built to take hits, right? He's a very physical running back, but he also has that breakaway speed. If you guys study running backs, once they get past that first level, when they get to that second level of the linebackers, you got to have that breakaway speed, right? Or you're going to get taken down. You're not going to be able to have big 20-yard plus runs. So once he gets to that second level, he does have the breakaway speed, even though he has this big 200-pound size. Really quick, just you'll see him for sure throwing out a stiff arm or two, breaking a tackle, and pulling away when he needs to. But just pulled an offer in from Yale. He's catching some attention that he deserves. But I really want his recruiting to pick up. Just watching this film, watching this production, looking at his stats from not just this year, but his high school campaign. This is a productive kid and a consistently productive kid. If he can catch out the backfield and block guys, he's got a life shelf for the next level for sure.
I love it, Drew. I'm gonna give a shout out to one kid real quick, and then I'll talk a little South Georgia ball because they reply to our emails and show us love. So talk a little bit about that. I'm gonna go up to Kentucky though. Got to give some love to LeBron Strader, Ashland senior quarterback, had a game-winning touchdown pass against Johnson Central in the final seconds to Dylan Duckweiler. Shout out to Duckweiler, too. He had 3 receiving touchdowns in the contest. Strader went 19 for 25 passing for 236 yards and 6 touchdowns with no interceptions. Big-time game in that one, Ashland and Johnson Central. Huge playoff implications because now I think how it shakes out, Ashland should have a better draw to make a deep run in the 4A ranks. Johnson Central's tough, man. Team's old school. They run the option. They've had Ashland's number the last several years and have been one of the state's best teams in the last decade plus, with multiple state titles. But back to Strader on the season, what you're going to see in his numbers might not blow you away, but he is going to do everything in his power to put his team in the best position to win and not make mistakes. And I think that's the most important part about the way that he plays. 92 for 134 on the season passing, 1,429 yards, 21 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I believe 2 of those picks came in one game, their only loss of the year, to Harvest Prep. Really good team out of Ohio, a team that'll contend for that D5 state championship up there in the Buckeye State. Strader also has 3 rushing touchdowns, got a couple NAIA offers to Pikeville and Rio Grande. I think this kid's going to be a solid college quarterback because, like I said, he just knows how to win. He's been starting there in Ashland since he was a sophomore, and he's just so efficient. I think it was the year prior he had just 1 interception, so takes good care of the ball. Knows how to manage that offense and knows how to manage the game. So shout out to LeBron Strader. It's awesome to see his hard work coming to fruition, and Ashland coming out on top of Johnson Central. I think the Tomcats are going to make some noise in the 4A state playoffs coming up. They start next week in Kentucky. So shout out to LeBron Strader. There's several other Ashland players that we can mention. I'll do that real quick. Braxton Jennings, he's just everywhere. We talked about him earlier on in the season. He's the guy who he went out to camp at USC, picked up a preferred walk-on offer from USC. So I think he's a guy that needs to get more attention, right? And his recruitment's starting to pick up a little bit, but I don't think it's enough. I mean, I think this is one of those hidden gems like Drew alluded to. He's a guy who can get it done in all 3 phases of the game, returning kicks, returning punts, defensively, offensively as well. They'll put him in the backfield, they'll split him out wide, he'll catch the ball. So, and then they've got another really versatile player in Cam Davis, and he's one of my favorite players to watch. I said this last time. He's a kid of a coach. His mom is Ashland's girls basketball coach, and he's just a leader on the field, man. Another guy who's does whatever it takes to win and get the job done. And when you have versatile weapons that can do multiple things all across your offense and then all across the defense as well, right? I mean, I think that puts you in a position to make some noise in the 4A ranks. Ashland won the state championship in 2020 in the COVID year. I think they're going to be right there this season. And with that win over Johnson Central, they avoid having to play Covington Catholic in the second round. So that was a big win, a lot of implications in that one. But let's go to Georgia now. We haven't talked South Georgia ball in a bit. We've been spending a lot of time, or I've been spending a lot of time in 5A Region 2. Lee County's your region champion. They haven't lost this season. They've been impressive, as we said a couple weeks ago, beating 2 defending state champs at Thomas County Central and Coffee by double digits. They're sitting pretty in that one spot, haven't handled their business. But the picture shaped up a bit with Thomas County Central beating Houston County in a shootout on Friday, 41-31. That sets up the Jackets game this Friday against Coffee with big seeding implications. The winner will be that 2 seed and get home playoff games. I'll be in the house covering that one. That should be exciting. We saw Thomas County Central early on in the season, so I'm interested to see how they've improved and gotten better. Then for Coffee, we saw them play Lee. I think they're much better than what they put on display in that game. So that should be a fun one. I'm excited for that one. We'll have coverage of that. Before we sign off, guys, I know the playoffs are on the way. Any closing thoughts from either one of you before we take off here on Under the Lights?
Sure, I want to add to the national scene as far as players. I got a quick hidden gem out of North Carolina. Cameron Melvin, class of 2026 edge rusher from Cleveland High School. I actually met Cam over the offseason. He was here. He was at Lancaster High School. He transferred from North Carolina. His parents had moved. He went back to North Carolina. Family situation changed, but he still keeps in contact with me. He sends me film every week. We're talking about a guy that's in the mold of the new age edge rusher. And I believe he's probably one of the best edge rushers in the state of North Carolina in the class 2026. Right now, season stats: 53 tackles, 25 for loss, 5 sacks. He's got a pass breakup as well. But we're talking about a guy that has a high motor, excellent first step, stout build, real compact build, takes on blocks well with the definition of keeping them off of him and keeping them at bay, violent hands and everything. And he's a quarterback's nightmare coming off the edge. And speaking of North Texas, Drew, he has a North Texas offer before he left the state of Texas. So, North Texas does do their homework. They got a very, very good staff. But Cameron Melvin's a guy in the 2026 class in North Carolina that I think is bubbling. He's been on a couple of visits to Michigan, North Carolina State. So he's getting the buzz. They hadn't pulled the trigger yet. It's kind of those things where you want to get a large sample of a guy, and he's putting it together on film. He's about 6 foot, 235 pounds. Bench pressures 365, squats 565. And he's a guy that has a high motor. And when you watch the film, you see him close out on the quarterback with excellent speed. He's a guy that plays violently in the trenches. And I think that Cameron Melvin is a guy that's going to start to pull in some offers with a great offseason coming up. But I think he's one of the best edge rushers in the state of North Carolina. And he's a guy that's, putting up numbers and is doing it on the field. Also in the classroom, a 3.38 GPA. So college coaches are going to start looking for a guy like this that they can put into their program, especially in the age of the edge rusher. It's not all about the measurables. It's about production. And Cameron Melvin's doing it in North Carolina.
Drew, any closing thoughts from you?
Shouts out North Carolina, man. I think I might be heading out there for my birthday that's coming up. That's about it.
I love it. I love it. Good stuff, guys. As we said, playoffs coming up. They start next week in Kentucky. I think we've got maybe one more week, right, in Florida, Drew?
Regular season's pretty much wrapped up here. I know they had to switch some games around with the hurricane, so I think some of these teams will be playing some big district games this coming week.
I think they might have extended and given one extra week in Georgia, but the teams we mentioned, I think, will wrap up this week. So stay tuned for those Thomas County Central Coffee highlights and coverage here on the channel. If you enjoy the show, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Check us out on social media as well, the platform DR or DR Sports with the Z. For Marc Henry, Drew Johnson, I'm Ben Spicer. We'll see you back next Sunday for another episode of Under the Lights.